For married couples, we start the living trust process discussing one of the most important and generous tax benefits available to those residing in community property states such as California. We call it the community property tax benefit, and it often proves to be the single most valuable part of a comprehensive living trust process. So valuable that it has allowed countless surviving spouses to legally shelter hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars from income taxation. This underscores why every married couple should take time to learn about this issue and why it should be a vital part of every married living trust process. To learn about it, all you have to do is to take the few minutes to watch this video and read the first two intake forms, the conflict agreement and the community property worksheet. We discuss these together because they are closely tied to each other. The conflict agreement begins with a few formalities explaining that we cannot take sides or favor either spouse's position, that we cannot keep secrets from the other spouse, and that both of you must be in full agreement for us to proceed. The conflict agreement then moves on to discuss community and separate property. While this is normally a family law issue, the enormous tax sheltering potential of community property makes it an important estate planning issue. That is why we give every married couple in a community property state the opportunity to complete a community property agreement, which is something you elect or decline using the community property worksheet. Most couples are unaware that the common practice of holding title as joint tenants in a community property state can nullify this major tax benefit. Part of the reason for a community property agreement is to override joint tenancy and help the surviving spouse qualify for the community property tax benefit. Again, it is no exaggeration to state that almost every surviving spouse that has a signed community property agreement has benefited from it, and it has enabled countless surviving spouses to legally shelter hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars from income taxation. That is why most couples are eager to qualify for this benefit. Despite the potential tax benefit, however, there are still some spouses that should decline a community property agreement. More particularly, any spouse that is concerned about preserving potential separate property rights should decline to sign such an agreement. Why? Because it will legally override any separate property rights, and we don't want anyone regretting that, most especially in the event of a divorce. Compounding this problem is the fact that many have community or separate property rights without even knowing it. That is why it is important for this to be an informed decision. So please, if you are in a community property state such as California, take the time to watch this video and read the overview of community and separate property contained in the conflict agreement before making your decision. Among other things, it clarifies that marriage does not automatically make everything community property, that any assets owned prior to marriage are generally separate property, that gifts and inheritances received during marriage are generally separate property, that earnings from either spouse's labors during marriage, including retirement plans, are generally community property, and that by law, an agreement between spouses regarding the characterization of any property is legally binding, and this is so of any community property agreement you may sign during the living trust process. As a matter of perspective, if you begin your marriage with little or nothing, have since received no gifts or inheritances, have no nuptial agreement, and what you have accumulated as a result of your work, then it is highly likely everything is community property anyway. And in such cases, there is no downside to signing a community property agreement. On the other hand, if you entered the marriage with significantly more assets or have since received gifts or inheritances, it is likely that you do have separate property, and if you are at all concerned with preserving it, you should decline a community property agreement. In practice, we find that most couples have little problem signing a community property agreement, especially since legally speaking, many have no separate property anyway, and still many others are wholly unconcerned about the issue. Yet that doesn't mean it is appropriate for everybody, and it is rightfully an individual decision. Just remember that you cannot qualify for the community property tax benefit and preserve your separate property rights at the same time. Only you can decide which is more important to you. As a final guideline, if you are the slightest bit hesitant or uncomfortable with this issue or feel you need more information, you should decline the option of a community property agreement and consult a family lawyer. Otherwise, we're happy to include a community property agreement as part of your trust package. Once you have read and signed both the conflict agreement and the community property worksheet, it's time to move on to the next video and topic, the married couple trust worksheet.